Are you like me? Are you on the same wavelength, the same mindset, the same thinking process as me about this issue? See, we saw this whole week of Israel and Palestine, basically war, and we saw the effects of that and the different sides that come out with that and the different point of views that come out of that and the different biases that came out with that. And one looks clearly like a defensive but then turned offensive, and then one looks offensive that turned defensive, and it just kind of went back and forth, and we saw the effects of it and the devastation of it, and then we saw anti-Semitic things like that started to pile up, and only one side of the story was being told, and people were losing their minds. And then we also saw what's going on in America, where the Democrats are still talking about January 6th. They're still talking about it as if it happened yesterday. They're still talking about it as if it's just as big of an issue as Pearl Harbor, as they said. Just as big of an issue as 9/11, as they've said. Just as big of an issue as a modern-day civil war, which is what they've said. Are we that deluded as a society to understand what war is like? Are American soldiers coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, do they think that that was equally the same as what goes on there? Would they say that, would World War II vets look at what happened January 6th and say, hey, that's exactly like I experienced in Germany. That's exactly what I experienced in Hawaii. That's exactly what I experienced going to Japan. I don't think so. I think you're seeing the unfoldings, the beginnings, the foundation that was built of this delusion of Trump being this evil dictator that all he does is lie, all he does is do evil things. He's homophobic, racist, all these lies that have been built up by the media, so much so that people actually believe it to its core. They don't actually have facts or things to say that back up. They'll have these mean tweets or things like comedians say, where they just say things jokingly and they take it seriously and take it out of context, and therefore that person is an evil dictator, evil bad person. But January 6th was a stupid event, was a terrible event. A person died because of that event. It was horrible. It was dumb. It was just what the Democrats wanted. It was just what liberal leftists wanted. Why? Because we spent a whole year watching them ruin cities over and over and over again every night. As they push back, say, hey, it's just buildings. It's not actual people. As you saw, politicians, Democratic, liberal leftists, not all Democrats, but liberal leftists, push funds, push money into bailing out these people that destroyed your city, my home. So they needed something. They needed something to take that negative ideology, that negative idea of that you have of them off of their plate. They needed something to complain about because it was going too good. Trump was walking into a re-election. They needed something. So they pushed the COVID-19 agenda. When you had things like the Wuhan lab leak theory that was pushed back, people were silenced, people were told to shut up. They were not allowed on platforms if they said these things. But now is a common mainstream idea. It's amazing what is said is misinformation in today's world. Just because you have a curious mind, what's now a mainstream idea, because that's how science is supposed to work. You're supposed to question things and then find out more information. Oh, wow, we got new information. You know, the politicians try to make you believe like Fauci never flip-flopped. Fauci always said the right things. And if he did, he just came up with some excuse like, hey, well, you know, that's how science goes. Oh, but you're allowed to say it, but no one else is. So we have this January 6th thing that they cannot let go. Why? Because the Biden administration is failing and not doing that well. The border crisis is still going on. We have kids being migrated to Knoxville, Tennessee overnight to make it seem like not as big of a deal because we can't hold the influx of people. As we have even now politicians pushing for gang members to be allowed to stay, MS-13 gang members to stay here, as the DAs just let them out in California. Hey, you got a life sentence? No big deal. You can leave. Because it's for our protection. It's COVID-19. We don't want our jails too full. We don't care about the American public feeling unsafe. We just feel unsafe. Because that's what it's about. The minute the government feels like they don't feel safe, that's when they have a real issue. That's why this January 6th thing is such a big deal to them. They feel that their power, their control was out of control that day. They hate that feeling. They don't like that feeling. They don't like the fact that you have power too. They don't like the fact that you can express your power. Hey, it's okay if you go destroy your own cities, but the fact that you come to the government buildings, the government is here to help, not here to ruin your life. Don't change the narrative. Don't mess that up. You're a real issue. So as Republicans try to escape this January 6th, as conservatives try to say, hey, it's over. Democrats are not saying, no, we're not done. We're coming harder. We're going to keep putting pressure on you. We're going to make you squeal. You might push back, say, hey, January 6th, fine, we'll have a January 6th commission as long as we have a whole summer of 2019, a 2020 commission that is going to look and search for everybody that destroyed property, that killed people. Way more people died all summer long due to the fact all the riots and protests over and over again, these mostly peaceful protests. It's funny, they don't call January 6th that, but everything else that had way more devastation, way more people died, way more injuries. It's a delusion. It's the same delusion as when they look at Trump. They can't see anything good in the person. They can't see anything he did good or well. They can't move past their own biases. They can't think about things thoroughly and logically about these things. That's why when you see the January 6th, everything has been said about it, despite some of the things about what people have done to other police officers that were there and all that stuff. It's based on emotion. And that emotion is very powerful. It's very powerful if you don't have facts behind the things, if you have a little bit of facts and then you let the emotion overcome your facts. But that's why when we push back and say, hey, January 6th was a huge deal and it was stupid, but to pretend like it's the same thing as a civil war, you're out of your mind. They don't see that because it's delusional. You're never going to agree with somebody who doesn't have a basis of truth. You're never going to agree with somebody who likes to change the definition of words you commonly use to fit their agenda. You'll never agree with that person because you can't even have a logical conversation with somebody who constantly says, hey, don't say that, that's offensive. Hey, don't say that, that's a microaggression. Hey, you can't say that, blah, blah, blah. You can't say that. You can't say, hey, you're a white male, ergo, you don't have a point of view in this. You need to shut your mouth and just listen. There's nothing you can say to help this conversation. There's no lived experience you've had that it brings any light to how I feel. And liberals love it. They want us to be separated. They want a power structure and somebody to be subjugated. They thrive off of that. I know they push down this this thought that conservatives actually are the ones that like the power structure. They like a person on top and a little person on the bottom. No. That's always been a communist socialist ideology. It's not a free market, libertarian, conservative ideology. The whole point of the conservative thought is that anyone can make it in America. Not with the liberal agenda. Not with the liberal politics that are being pushed down your throat. It's meant so you survive off the government. You look to the government for answers. You look to the government for help. You look to the government to grow in your career. You look to the government to even be a part. To make it in America, you want to be a part of the government because they have the power. They have the authority. They have the strength in the country. That's what they want. Whereas conservatives say, no. I want you to do whatever you want to do, and you can make it however you want to make it and make it to the fullest. They don't like that. They don't like a citizen having equal amount of power as them. Only if that citizen aligns with their ideology. That's why Facebook, Google, Twitter, all these big tech companies, they love them because they support their agenda and they push this agenda. They push this ideology. This isn't a free market with them. That's crony capital. This is just like, it's not. They sway and change elections. They're not the same as a Planet Fitness. Planet Fitness ain't out here pushing people to go vote and then pushing ideologies and smashing people's opinions on their forums. It's not the same. They're not the same as a bakery baking a cake. It's just not. That's clearly a private business. To say Facebook is a private company, get out of here. But, liberal leftists and their delusions like to push that ideology because they know they're like, hey, conservatives like business, so why aren't you for business? But this January 6th thing is really pissing me off because I'm so tired of it. I'm so tired of talking about it. I'm so tired of listening about it. I'm tired of turning on the news and hearing January 6th commission. I'm like, are we still talking about that? There's other things going on in the world. There's Russia and Ukraine, Russia and the North Pole, China, Taiwan, China pushing their agenda down their throat, Uyghur Muslims still being subjugated. The border crisis that's going on as children are going across the border. As you're seeing kids who are just 5 and 6 year olds who are just sitting on a land by themselves, lost because the people that brought them across the border, as soon as they came across the border, they let the kids go because they don't need them as little shields as their way to get into the country anymore. So they leave them and they keep going. They don't care. Does that sound like a nice human being who would just leave a 5-year-old in the middle of the desert because they've already made it into America? Does that sound like somebody who you want in this country? No, it doesn't. And to say otherwise is idiotic. They're all just hardworking people. They're all good people. Yeah. I hate when people paint people with a brush stroke, with just a wide paintbrush. Everyone's this way. No. Everyone's an individual. Yes, you have some cultural things that you bring and some biases that you bring based on who you are and how you grew up. That is true. But everyone is different. You can have the same home, and one person turns out to be a drug addict that lives in and out of prison the rest of his life, and the other person to be a successful entrepreneur. It can happen. So to say that just because you live this way or grew up this way doesn't mean you're going to act some way. But right now we have a culture war that's going on like never before. It's before our eyes, like never before, and liberals and leftists have been playing the long game, and they're reaping what they sowed over the last years of pushing things down kids' throats. Some kids, like myself, that could feel things being pushed down my throat and would call BS when I saw it, they hated me. So I never got that good of grades because teachers would say something and I would challenge them and be like, is that really that true? And then we would get into an argument, and it never turned out that well. But it's the January 6th thing. It's purely political. It's purely ideological. It's their way of subjugating people, saying, here's us and here's you. Here, you're the other. If you don't support us putting every single person that was a part of the January 6th events in bars for the rest of their life, you're part of the problem. You're an issue, and we're going to crush you. And we'll look at your posts. Look at what you say at work. There's no such thing as forgiveness. You're not allowed to wear Trump things because we'll put you on blast. We'll make you lose your job. And guess what? Our army of little spam trolls will go to your company, we'll do a Yelp review, and we'll Yelp the heck out of it and ruin your company because we don't care. We just want our agenda to be pushed. And that's all that matters. So as Republicans push back and say this is dumb, they don't care because they're in the delusional space. And what's so sad is seeing some of these Republicans that agreed to this commission because they don't want to be put on blast. They're scared. Maybe you're scared. Maybe you're scared to speak out on stuff like this. Maybe you're nervous to speak out on stuff like this. I get it. I think the same way all the time. I get nervous when I talk. I get nervous about my future. What if somebody... Because liberals don't care about context. They just say, hey, well, you said this word. You said this thing. And despite it being okay 10 years ago, it's not okay now. And so you're the same person physically. We're taking you down. And you're done for. So I get it. But I just want to encourage you. Keep pushing back on this delusion. Keep pushing back on things that you see, things that you feel. The more conservatives feel comfortable speaking up, the better. When you're told to shut up, you're told you don't have a voice, you're told you're going to lose your job. Maybe you'll lose your job. But what's more important? Your job or your dignity? Your job or what you believe to be true? Because a lot of these liberal leftists are saying absolutely ridiculous things, and they don't care because they believe it to be true down to their core. Are you the same way? The things you believe down to your core, do you push back when somebody says something absolutely ridiculous? Do you continue to fight for others who don't have a voice? Because that's what a lot of my podcast is. I don't care if I reach one person. I could care less. That one person, I'm talking to you, means more to me than I do to myself. And I care about what's going on in your brain, care about what's going on emotionally, and I want you to know you're not alone. I think the same way as you. I'm not this propped up podcast that has a bajillion followers. I'm a normal person. I've lived a crazy life. I've had terrible things happen to me. I have lots of trauma that I still need to work through. And I think that's where the comedy comes out. But and I use comedy as a way to push a message and make fun of culture and ideologies because it makes me laugh. And I hope you find your niche of what you need to do in this society to make you feel better. Because to be honest, doing this podcast has been more for me and than maybe for other people. My well-being, I get more out of this than I do reading the news by myself or just having conversations. Because this is my way of expressing things I've been feeling and thinking and getting my message out to the world of what I believe to be true. Because I think it's important in a time where truth is questioned constantly. Language is questioned constantly. And language is so incredibly important, first of all. It's a way... not necessarily how you think, but it's how we communicate to each other. And if we're not saying the same, if our words that are coming out of our mouth don't mean the same thing, we'll never be able to communicate with each other well. In fact, you're seeing almost a whole language being rebuilt, reimagined before your eyes. And you have to either push back against it or accept it. It's either or. It can't be, I just feel whatever. It's not my fight. You can do it. Derek, I support you in what you're doing, but I'm not going to gauge. You got to engage. You got to join the fight. Come on my podcast. I don't care. I'll have anybody on it. I'm not like this. I'll only have influencers on my podcast. I think people are more interested in hearing normal people talk. I enjoy listening, the big wigs like Ben Shapiro talk with other people, but I don't always disagree with him. I listen to liberal podcasts all the time. I do. I listen to because I want to know what they're thinking and what they're saying. And usually the arguments I'm hearing is pretty weak. And to be honest, I haven't been besides Sam Harris, I haven't been excited or interested in listening to those podcasts for very long because they're it's just very dumb and childish, a lot of the things that have been said. And they don't have to use sources, and they're not held to the same standards conservatives are, because conservatives are held to a way higher standard. You're not allowed to be this way. You're not allowed to act this way. That's why Trump, when he was tweeting, people were losing their minds. Like, hey, that's a liberal thing. You can't do that. That's our thing. Only we can tear down culture. My encouragement to you guys is January 6th. I did get one question about it. Do you think that they're going to look through the video of the cops being letting in protesters and rioters? Will the January 6th Commission look at the video surfacing of police allowing people inside? I would hope so, because I've seen some of those videos of like when they were talking to that shaman dude, and he's like, "Hey, they're telling us to be peaceful, so be peaceful," and you're like, "Wait a minute." Yes, there was terrible things. I saw other videos of people like hitting other policemen with batons, but they didn't seem like the same people for some reason, even if they're a part of it. You know how the liberals are. They like to paint everyone with a broad brush, and in some capacities, conservatives do that too, where we looked at all summer long, we're like, oh, this is all Antifa, all Black Lives Matter. It can't be anything else. It could be. I'm not going to say every protest was turned into a riot, because it didn't. It was clear there was protests during the day, and then different people came later at night and decided to loot and riot. Let's be real. So I don't know what organization to call them, QAnon, whatever you want to call them, that was a part of it. I just thought it was a bunch of idiots that had a plan and got up in emotion, just did some horrible things, and one person died, Ashley Babbitt, which we still don't even know the cop's name that shot her, but you hear everything else. I'm just thinking, this is not going to end. You're going to hear about January 6th for years on end, because Democrats are more concerned about tearing things down than building things up. And so they see this an opportunity to continue their fight of tearing down conservatives, even though conservatives have, like myself, have come out and said that was stupid, that was idiotic, that was horrible. I don't know how many times like conservatives like need to say how bad they thought it was. It's like the dumbest. It's like Donald Trump. Donald Trump, are you gonna denounce white supremacists? He's like, I've said it a million times. Why do you want me to keep saying it? Because they don't care. Because they want you to slip. They want you to keep thinking that you think this way. They want you to keep thinking the public thinks this way. They want you to believe this, because it's not true. This is what happens when you create a lie. You have to keep pushing it. You have to keep pushing the agenda because it's not true. You have to keep making it up. You have to keep re-saying it. You have to say it over and over again and hope for people to start picking it on and believing it. Instead, when you say a truth, you say it one time and people go, wow, that's good, because it's true. But when you say a lie, you think, I don't know, I don't think that's true. And then you say it again, you're like, I don't think that's true. And then you say it again, you're like, is that true though? And then they just keep saying it over and over again in hopes that you believe what they believe. My encouragement to you is keep fighting. I know this January 6th story is boring, but I think it's just an implication of how bad they're actually doing, and they want the narrative to stay on. As bad as we're doing, remember what Donald Trump did? And even if you have a good picture of what Donald Trump did, they believe that's powerful enough for Donald Trump to never be voted again, and especially people like Donald Trump to never be voted in, ergo Republicans. They're going to paint every Republican the same way coming up, even if it's Jeb Bush or like other rhinos that you just don't care about. Keep fighting. Keep calling your politicians. Let them know what you want them to do, because you voted them in. They didn't just walk into power. Remember that. Let them know what you want them to do. Speak up. Tell them how to govern, because I'm tired of freaking Republicans and their weak mentalities and not wanting to push back. Again, I said this a million times. Majority Taylor Greene. I don't always agree with everything she says, but at least she has some balls. A lot of Republicans don't. And you know the ones that have balls are the ones that the media absolutely hates. Ron DeSantis, Ted Cruz, Marjorie Taylor Greene, Rand Paul are people that come to my mind immediately. They hate those people because they're speaking out. It's like Tulsi Gabbard on their side, they quickly squashed her. They didn't want anything to do with her. Hey, we can't have a logical thinking person up in here. We need somebody that's just going to push our agenda. And who can that be? Oh, Joe Biden. I'm proud of Joe Biden for resupplying Israel with Iron Dome. Congrats on that. Again, I'm not afraid. If I see something I like that Joe Biden does, I will say it. I am not tied to my political party so much so that I can't look at something that's good and say it's bad. I'm just not that person. I'm not going to look at Joe Biden barely swinging a golf swing and hitting a wall and talking about it for 35 minutes like you see some of these other conservative outlets talking about, like, oh my God, look at his golf swing. What a loser, blah, blah, blah. Who cares? Who cares? There are real things going on in the world. There are real issues to be talked about, and no one wants to talk about it. Why? Because it takes an actual brain, and it takes actual research, and it takes time to actually think something, rather than just saying, hey, Queen Victoria's School is being canceled now. We're going to talk about that for an entire segment about cancel culture and why it's so stupid. It's such an easy layup, and it's so stupid. Yes, you have to keep talking about it, but there are some real issues that are going on, and I wish Republicans and conservatives would jump on the train of those issues. Like the cultural wars that are going on in our child's brains right now. As PBS has pushed a new hour for storytelling, and if you don't know what I'm talking about, you should look it up. They like to mold the child's brain because convincing a kid is way easier. That's why they want 16-year-olds to vote. Convincing a kid that January 6th was equally as bad as the Civil War, because they've never even been taught the Civil War. They don't know about the war. They don't know about history. They want you to believe that because these kids don't know context and they don't know history as well as you and I do, but they can mold those child's brains. So later, 5-10 years down the line, they will vote for them to stay in power. Those are just my thoughts for the week. Sorry, that was a little ranty. I'm putting out some more videos, by the way. Just me being goofy. I think there's so much power in comedy. And it's my outlet that keeps me sane during these crazy times anyways. I hope you guys enjoy some of my silliness as well as my seriousness. It's always like a hard thing for me is because I like to make so many jokes. Some people don't take me very seriously, but I really enjoy deep thinking concepts and talking about philosophy and sociology, psychology. I love the mind and the way we think. So if you ever want to come on my show and talk about stuff like that, I'd be happy to invite you. Send me a DM. Let me know what you want to talk about. Let's get on and talk about it, because I think the more of us feeling comfortable and talking in the out and open, the better. Have a fantastic day, guys. And as always, thank you so much for watching The Derek O'Shea Show, listening to The Derek O'Shea Show. Be sure to share this on every platform. Please, please, please. It's the only way I will grow as a platform. That's it. It's through you. So if you're scared to have a voice, you're scared to speak up, share this and let it be your voice. Let me be your voice for you. I don't care. Tell your friends and family about it. It's the only way we will grow, and it's the only way it'll become more of the norm of having people like me and you share things like this. Don't be afraid. Stand firm in your faith and what you believe. Have a fantastic day. And as always, I'll see you on the next episode of The Derek O'Shea Show.